verses that were read in your hearing just now will introduce for us the topic of the evening, and that is that God was manifest in the flesh. And this, of course, is talking about the birth of Jesus Christ and His ministry while here on earth. Jesus Christ was in every way human, yet in every way divine. And that makes Him completely and totally unique, and that is what is unique about the Christian faith. And in the course of this study, we will talk about that fact, the fact that He is both human and both divine. We will talk about the purpose of God arranging Christ's earthly ministry in that way. And we will talk about the significance of that in your life and mine. It is appropriate for us to see that we correctly understand the human nature of Jesus Christ. There's a considerable bit that's written in the New Testament defending that idea, and it's important just to know that. There's a good bit written in the Old Testament and the New Testament that assures us of the deity of Jesus Christ, or the fact that He possessed the full divine nature. And it's important for us to just know those things for the sake of correctly understanding the Christian faith to which we adhere. But it's also important that we understand that there's practical value to that information. It's not just something that I know and say, okay, I'm going to check that off the list and know that I have a correct understanding of this, but there are things that I can do with that information. And that will be the design of our study this evening. Philippians chapter 2, beginning at verse 5, discusses for us Christ's journey from the heavenly realm to the earthly realm, wherein He became God manifest in the flesh. Let's read this passage just now. Philippians chapter 2 now, verse 5 through 8. Let this mind be in you, which was also in Christ Jesus, who being in the form of God, did not consider it robbery to be equal with God, but made Himself of no reputation, taking the form of a bondservant, and coming in the likeness of men, being found in appearance as a man, He humbled Himself and became obedient to the point of death, even the death of the cross. This passage contains for us every bit of information that frames our study. The idea that prior to His earthly existence, Jesus was in the form of God, and He was equal with God. But He did not consider that something that He would retain in that moment, but instead He came into the earth, into the form of a bondservant, and was made in the likeness of men. So He was both divine and human. And being found in appearance as a man, He died to death on the cross, which is something we'll also talk about this evening. Now, in considering the practical application of this information, there are other things we'll talk about in the course of the study, but just to illustrate the idea, notice the passage opens up with this admonition, let this mind be in you, which was also in Christ Jesus. Christ being in the form of God, but coming down in the form of man, teaches us. Knowing that He's both human and divine teaches us. It teaches us to have an humble mindset, wherein, like Jesus, we're willing to humble ourselves and step into whatever role of service that our relationship with the Lord might call upon us to do. In Christ's instant, the role of service was becoming human for our sake. In our case, that kind of service might be any number of things you could readily imagine that would be part of our Christian walk. And so if there's nothing else we could learn from it, we can just learn to follow that example of humility. But of course, there's much more.